and welcome to Nutrition Moments, a program that enlightens us about what we nourish our body with to stay healthy. I am Fadila Okunu. Let's start with Nutri News. You're welcome back. Do you know the salt we put in our food comprises of sodium and chloride? And scientific evidences have shown the correlation between excessive sodium intake and hypertension. Today on NutriLens, we shall examine being smart with our salt intake.
Salt is often regarded as the spice of life. It is one of the most widely used and oldest form of food seasoning. It enhances the flavor of foods and plays a preservative as well as functional role in food processing. Aside from food preparation and processing, there are other uses of salt. It has also been used in dyeing and bleaching and the production of chemical products like soap. With the increase in the cases of high blood pressure, also known as hypertension, health experts caution on high intake of sodium and salt, and we get confused. In this state of confusion, we tend to ask questions. Are salt and sodium the same or different substances? A survey was carried out to assess people's understanding of the difference between salt and sodium.
Salt
Yes.
and sodium.
Yes.
I don't know.
Salt and sodium. I'm not sure. I'm not a science student. I have no idea.
Salt.
Yes.
Salt they used to cook.
Yes.
Is it not salt?
Salt is what we add to our food.
Sodium is a constant of salt.
So what's salt?
Salt is sodium chloride.
Sodium and salt are not the same thing, but they are used the same time. Because sodium times 2.5 make it salt.
Salt is not sodium chloride. So there's no difference. There's sodium in salt. NaCl.
Salt, yeah, of course it's sodium. It's when you combination of whatever you get. That's salt. I did sciences, so I know what is salt.
Salt is what we add into our food now. I don't know much, but I think sodium, salt contains sodium, or sodium is what is used. At least my elementary knowledge teaches me that sodium is used for preservative or something like that. Yeah. Then salt, I don't know. Maybe salt contains sodium, but I don't know. But I think sodium is basically for preservatives. I don't know. I'm not sure.
With so much misconception about salt and sodium, understanding the difference between the two could help how we appreciate the nutritional values of both in our diet. What then are salt and sodium?
Sodium is what we find in food, but salt is what we add to food. So in a nutshell, when you have a canned food, so it's a preservative that is used in keeping it safe for usage at any point in time. But the salt it's like a spice or a condiment that is added to food to make it tasty for us. Salt contains about 40% of sodium and 60% of the chloride. So even when you're feeling the saltiness of salt, when you're tasting it, it's the chloride in it that you're tasting, not the sodium.
With the misconception cleared, sodium and salt are not the same thing. Salt refers to a crystalline chemical compound, sodium chloride, while sodium refers to the dietary mineral sodium. Salt is made up of 40% sodium and 60% chloride. Sodium is found in food, either naturally or processed foods, while salt is what we add to our food when we use the salt shake. With people reducing salt intake in their foods, is salt a devil that should be avoided in our diets or requirement for a healthy diet?
Sodium is a mineral. So as compared to mineral and vitamins, they all perform a maintenance role in our body. But for vitamins, if it is deficient, it can go without it being noticed for a long period of time. But like a mineral, which is sodium, if it is deficient in the body, it can cause a life-threatening disease. Sodium is a mineral, and there are several of them in the body. But the major benefit you can get from sodium is that it helps to balance our fluid. The fluid in our body balances it. Then it also helps to balance the acid base in the body, osmotic pressure, our muscles, contraction, relaxation of it is what the sodium does. Now, there are two extremes that the sodium can get to. If it's too high in the body, normally the body is supposed to send a signal to the kidney to get rid of it, and it's supposed to balance itself. But in cases whereby you find out that the person has an impaired disease that cannot make that function happen, then it is detrimental. That's when you find out that we say, okay, some people should be on low salt diet or low sodium diet. When it is too low, it can cause dizziness, it can cause a lot of things. So most times when it is too low, it requires the medical attention. When it is high, it's called hypernatremia, but when it is low, it's called hyponatremia. Hypertension is when the sodium in the body is so much. It causes retention of water, fluid, so you find out the person has edema, that's swelling of some parts of the body. And when it is low, like I said, it can cause dizziness, can cause twitching, convulsion, when it is too low.
As the body needs salt to function properly, too much of it can be detrimental to our health. So how much salt does our body really need? Again, we examine public opinion on how much salt people put in their meals.
No, I don't check the quantity, but I just, normal sprinkle of salt on my food.
With this my hand, I know the kind of quantity of salt I can put in, maybe small rice or big rice. So this hand is our own measurement. We don't just put it there like that. We sprinkle it so that everything will go around. Then we'll turn it.
Yes, I measure it, of course. I do. Because someone like me, I don't like too much salt in my food.
Well, it depends on the taste. Depends on taste.
It is a known fact that the body does not produce its own sodium. It is only acquired from food. Like other nutrients such as calcium or vitamin D, it is rarely necessary to take sodium supplements. Health experts say the sodium supplied by a healthy diet is typically adequate.
Our requirement for salt is about 5 to 10 grams in a day. Just this much in a day. 1 to 2 teaspoons is what is required for all our intake in a day. In Nigerian homes today, we hardly find people that will just make a food for a sitting. Of course, maybe it's for the family. All you just have to do is ensure that when you're cooking, you have just minimal amount of sodium you're adding to your food. Don't let it be too much. Not that you eat the food and you start feeling that saltiness in it. That's not safe.
Then, how do we know when we have too much sodium in our body?
We can't be too safe with salt because it's not something that you can measure at home, what your salt intake is. But of course, there are some signs you know if you have too much salt in your body. If the sodium in your body is too less, you find out that you urinate less. And when it's too much, you find out that you go more frequently to urinate. And some people even lose sodium through sweat. So that means how physically active the person is can also be put into test. But it's more or not, it's always best to just do an health check, a general health check as often as possible, like 2 or 3 times a year, just to check and be on the safe side.
Some foods naturally contain sodium. These include all vegetables and dairy products, meat, and shellfish. These foods do not have a lot of sodium, but eating them does add to the overall amount of sodium in our body. One way to reduce sodium intake is to limit our consumption of high sodium foods.
Try to avoid anything that is canned. Any food or anything that is in a can is preserved using sodium. That's what keeps it to have a longer life. When we're buying anything that is in a can or labeled or in a pack, it's always good to read labels of packaged food and to check the sodium content that is present in whatever you're buying. just to be smart and to stay ahead of your sodium content.
I'm sure you had an enlightening moment with me on the program. Make it a date with me next week. Bye for now.
you.